All right, guys, so here we are with part two of changing fractions to percents. Again, we're using method two, all right, because that's the method that's going to work 100% of the time. Okay? If you want to try method one on your own and work through it, you can, but method two is always going to work. Method one only works some of the time. And when you're talking about, being timed and not having a whole lot of time to do stuff, you don't want to keep fumbling around trying to figure stuff out. So I would say that method, um, definitely stick with method two, especially during the GED. Now, when it comes to percents, I want to show you something. A problem like this, 4/5 turning it into 80%, yes, method one would work. But it wasn't hard to do it this way, was it? We took 4/5 this is from part one, we took 4/5, and then 4 divided by 5. And then we put the decimal down to add the 0, right? 5 goes into 40 8 times. Then we did our subtraction, and boom, we had the decimal part. That's step one, find the decimal. Step two is turning into a percent, which was moving the decimal over two spaces. Now, again, from part one, I did make a mistake. I was leaving the decimal here, and that is incorrect. You need to move the decimal over two spaces in order to get the proper percentage. So again, this is totally wrong, and this is absolutely correct. All right. Even on the other side, I noticed I did it a couple of times. I did everything right here. Did everything right. And then I looked over here and it's like, oh, I did not move the decimal over. That's wrong. You've got to move that decimal over two spaces to the right before it can become your whole number or your percentage. So again, this is totally wrong. And this is absolutely right. Same thing down here. I did move the decimal, right? You're supposed to move it over before it can become a percentage. And so this totally wrong. And this is absolutely correct. So even I make mistakes. I'm sitting here, trying to use the camera and trying to look at the time to make sure I don't run out of time on my camera, and also, trying to explain it and write it and all that stuff. And even I make a mistake. So, I'm rushing, I'm trying to get through it, and I made mistakes. So just to show you, that's how easy you can make a mistake. But forgetting to move this decimal over once when you want to turn it to a percent, that can make your whole entire problem incorrect. Okay? Same thing here. Just something as simple as not moving that decimal over two spaces so that this can be the proper answer will make your whole problem wrong. Also, forgetting to do your reducing could make your whole problem wrong. All right, so I made a mistake. That's fine. People talk about teachable moments. There's a teachable moment. I made a mistake because I'm not fully focused on what I'm doing, trying to do a couple things at the same time. And I'm glad I caught myself. I sincerely hope I have not confused you all by me making that mistake. Hopefully, when you were watching me work on the problems, you saw and said, "Hey, Mr. Greer, you forgot to do something there, buddy," because you must take your decimal and move it two spaces to the right, before you can turn it into a percentage. Okay, and I'm going to continue now on page 104. We're still on row 4, and now we're doing the 7/10ths on row 4. That's the third one over in row 4. So page 104, row 4, third problem over, 7/10ths. And we are changing fractions to percents. So here we go, 7/10ths. The first thing you're going to want to do is turn this fraction into a decimal. That's step one. So 7 divided by 10. Okay? 7 divided by 10. 10 can't go into 7, so we're going to add a decimal, so I can put a 0 here. Bring our decimal up so it's in the right space, okay? 10 can go into 70 7 times. Do my multiplication, 10 times 7 is 70. And then do my subtraction, 70 minus 70 is 0. So here's our decimal answer, step 1. Step 2 is turn the decimal into a percent by moving the decimal over 2 spaces to the right. Our answer is 70%. Find the decimal first, then move the decimal 2 spaces to the right to get you the answer. Let's move over here to 1/12. First step, step 1. I'm going to sound like a broken record because I want you to remember this. So step 1, when we're changing fractions to percents, step 1, take this fraction, turn it to a decimal. So 1 divided by 12. 1 divided by 12. 1 divided by 12. Okay? 12 can't go into 1, so we're going to add a 0. We can't add zeros until we put that decimal point first, right? Boom. Now we can add a 0. And then we can move our decimal up in the right position. Okay? 12 can't go into 10, so we're going to add another 0. 12 can go into 100. Okay? So, let's start. We have a 0 here, so we're going to have to do 12 can't go into 1. 12 can't go into 0 either, so 0's got to go here, all right? Do the math. 12 goes into 0. 12 times 0 is 0, right? Do my subtraction. 10 minus 0 is 10. Bring down that other 0. 12 can go into 100 8 times. Okay? 12 times 8 is 96. And 100 minus 96 is 4. Remember, when we're turning fractions into percents, we stop right here. So we are 2 spaces over, we stop right here, right? This becomes our main number, right? So let's turn this into a percent, moving it over 2 spaces, okay? So 8 and 4/12, right? 8 and 4/12. Our main number, numerator, denominator. 8 and 4/12 of a percent. But 4/12 can get reduced. 4 can go into 4 1 time. 4 can go into 12 3 times. So our real answer, after reducing, is 8 and 1/3%. Step 1, take the fraction and turn it into a decimal. We did that. Step 2, take your decimal answer, and by moving the decimal over to the right 2 spaces, turn it into a percent. And then right here, we need to reduce. And that's what we did. We reduced it. Our answer is 8 and 1/3%. Let's move on to row 5. Row 5, first one is 5/8. Step 1, turn the fraction into a decimal. So 5 divided by 8. 5 divided by 8. 8 can't go into 5, so we've got to put a decimal so we can start adding some zeros. Move your decimal up to the right position. 8 goes into 50 6 times because 6 times 8 is 48. Do our subtraction. 50 minus 48 is 2. Let's add another 0 and bring that down. 8 can go into 20 just 2 times. 8 times 2 is 16. Do our subtraction. 20 minus 16 is 4. We're 2 spots here. That's enough. Okay, so we're going to turn this to our whole number by moving the decimal place over, right? So that's 62. And 4, our numerator, 8's denominator, right? So that's going to become 62 and 4/8%. But we got 4/8 here. So we got to reduce it to become 62 and a half. And there's our real answer. Let's take a look at this 4/9. Step 1, turn the fraction into a decimal. 4 divided by 9. Come on, camera, work with me now. My camera's stacked up now. Come on, find it. All right. 4 divided by 9. Add the decimals so we can put some zeros in. Make sure you move your decimal up. All right. 9 goes into 40. So 9 goes into 40 4 times. 9 times 4 is 36. 40 minus 36 is 4. Let's add another 0 and bring that down. 9 goes into 40 4 times. 9 times 4 is 36. Now, we're 2 spaces over. We stop right here. Let's turn this into a percent by moving it over 2 spaces, right? So we have 44, and 4 is the numerator, 9 is the denominator, right? So our answer is now 44 and 4/9. We can't do any reducing here. So that is our final answer, 44 and 4/9%. All right, 2 more to go. Hang in there with me, guys. So we have 3/7. Step 1, turn the fraction into a decimal. 3 divided by 7, 3 divided by 7. 7 can't go into 3, so we're going to add a decimal so we can put some zeros, right? Move the decimal up into the right position. 7 goes into 30. How many times? 7 can go into 30 4 times. 7 times 4 is 28. Do my subtraction. 30 minus 28 is 2. Let's add another 0 and bring it down. 7 goes into 20 just 2 times. 7 times 2 is 14. Do my subtraction. 20 minus 14 is 6. We're 2 spaces over. We're done. Now let's turn this into a percentage by moving the decimal over 2 spaces to the right, right? And so there is our whole number, 42, and our fraction, 6/7. So your answer is 42 and 6/7%. 42 and 6/7%. Step 1, turn the fraction into a percent, turn a fraction to a decimal. Once you find the decimal answer, turn the decimal into a percent. And let's do our last one. 9 over 20. Step 1, turn the fraction into a decimal. I hope y'all hear this in your sleep. So 9 divided by 20. 9 divided by 20. 20 can't go into 9, so I'm going to use a decimal so I can add a 0. Bring my decimal up to the right position. 20 goes into 94 times. 20 times 4 is 80. Do my subtraction. 90 minus 80 is 10. We'll add another 0. Bring it down. 20 can go into 100 5 times. 20 times 5 is 100. So we're done. We found the decimal. That was step 1. Step 2, turn the decimal into a percent by moving the decimal point over to the right 2 spaces. And so our answer is 45%. Okay, so step 1, turn the fraction into a decimal. Once you find your decimal, turn the decimal into a percent by moving the decimal space over 2 places. All right, and I'm going to recap this because this is the last problem of changing fractions to percents. And this is probably the tougher of the 4 things. So again, back when you have those dangling, we have those fractions at the end of your percent. What you do is, step 1, turn the fraction into a percent. You only go 2 numbers over, right? When you get to your second number, you're going to take that number. It's going to be point and then 2 numbers, right? And you're going to turn that number into the percent by moving the decimal over 2 spaces. And then with the remaining number, you do like you've done with mixed numbers. Numerator, denominator. 42 6/7%. Also, don't forget that if you ever have something where when you get this far, you look at your fraction, double check your fraction to make sure it can't be reduced. If it can be reduced, go ahead and reduce your fraction. Okay? So hopefully you guys found this helpful. I will answer any questions that you have before we move forward for Tuesday's meeting. So if you have any questions whatsoever about the problems that we've worked on, I will help you. Tomorrow morning, hopefully as soon as I wake up, because I've got to work on this, figure out what's wrong with my phone right now. We're going to work on changing percents to fractions. It's much easier. You just got to remember how to do the good old-fashioned keep, change, flip, right? The KCF. So we'll go over that tomorrow. I'll go over that in depth. Tomorrow morning, we'll meet with each other on Tuesday. I'll answer any questions on any of the problems you have, and then we'll move on to actually using these skills to answer some real life questions. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging in there with me. We're going to get through this. I know it's tough. I know it's confusing a little bit, but practice, practice, practice. As you can see, before I even started working on this, I did it in the book, myself, and then did it all over again. Practice, practice, practice. And yes, even with me getting the answers correct here, I still made that silly mistake that I made earlier. So, you just got to practice, pay attention, take your time. Everything's going to be okay. Thank you so much. And I will have another video for you first thing as soon as I wake up on Sunday morning. Take care, guys.